Imagine being able to buy a Samsung phone that gives you their full flagship experience, but at half the price, or about 60% to be exact. Powerful cameras, a premium design, real AI features that actually work, and so much more. That's the full package you get with the Samsung Galaxy S25 FE, the latest phone in the flagship killer category. A lineup that's meant to bring you a near flagship experience, but for a lower price. So in today's video, let's take a closer look at the S25 FE, and I'll tell you what I liked and what I didn't, because this phone has some crazy stuff going on, some amazing things, and some weird ones that'll drive you nuts. And of course, we'll talk about the real upgrades from the previous S24 FE, which I still have with me till today. So, as usual, drop a like, and let's jump right into the review. Let me start with the color of this phone. I'm a huge fan of blue, and the blue on the S25 FE looks amazing. Samsung nailed it perfectly. But if you see the S25 FE from afar, you might think, come on, it's not that different. And to be fair, you'd be right. But there are still a few noticeable changes in the new version. First off, the back is still premium glass, protected by Gorilla Glass Victus Plus, but now it's frosted and matte instead of glossy like the old one. That glossy finish used to be annoying. The frame is still made of solid aluminum, but its color is now slightly darker, and the thickness has dropped to 7.4 millimeters. The camera rings at the back are now slightly bigger. I'm talking about the design, not the sensors. We'll get to those in a bit. They also now follow the Ultra style look. Each lens is fully visible, stuck cleanly onto the back, not popping out from the body like the S24 FE. And finally, the weight of the phone is lighter now, just 190 grams. So basically, Samsung kept all the premium materials from the S24 FE, but made smart refinements to make the S25 FE look better, feel lighter, and more comfortable to hold for long use. Of course, it still has IP68 water resistance. So now tell me, what do you think about the design of the S25 FE? The display is a 6.7-inch dynamic LTPO AMOLED 2X, Full HD Plus resolution, with 120 Hz refresh rate and HDR10 Plus support. You might think, wait, isn't that the same display from the S24 FE? But no, my friend, there are two important differences. First, Samsung finally reduced the bezels. We've been asking for that for like 3 generations now. The top and side bezels are noticeably thinner, and even the bottom bezel has shrunk, though not by much because Samsung has to keep something to separate it from the Plus model. That's just classic Samsung logic. But overall, the display now looks way cleaner than before. Second, the screen tech itself changed. It's now LTPO, while last year's model was just regular AMOLED. Samsung claims the refresh rate scaling is now smoother and more efficient, though honestly, I didn't notice much difference there. What I did notice, though, was a huge improvement when the screen is off. You know that annoying glow and visible border you'd see on always-on display in previous Samsung mid-range phones? That cheap look. Yeah. Gone completely. Now the black is pure black, and the always-on display looks perfectly seamless. That for me is a huge deal, because when your screen is off, it finally looks truly off. So yes, definite improvements to the display. Of course, color accuracy, contrast, HDR, and sharpness are all top tier, just what you expect from Samsung. And the reddish tint issue that we saw in the S24 FE's display, totally fixed here, probably thanks to the new panel type. As for brightness, Samsung says it's 1900 nits, same as last year. Didn't go higher, which is fine, since it's still plenty bright outdoors, though I do wish it was a bit higher, especially since other flagship killer phones are starting to outshine Samsung in this area. The display is protected by Gorilla Glass Victus Plus, and yes, as always, no pre-applied screen protector in the box.
Let's move on to performance, because there's been a lot of talk and arguments about it. Samsung used one of its older flagship processors, the Exynos 2400, the same chip that was used in the S24 Plus. But Samsung says they added a larger cooling chamber this time to keep this phone from overheating. It also comes with UFS 4.0 storage, either 256 gigabytes or 512 gigabytes, and both versions come with 8 gigabytes of RAM. Come on, Samsung, loosen up a bit and give us 12 gigabytes of RAM on the FE. I mean, Apple just gave the iPhone 17 a 120Hz screen, so let's step it up a bit here. More importantly, it comes with Samsung's latest interface, One UI 8, based on Android 16. And on top of that, You get 7 years of Android updates, which is the longest support period in the entire Android world. Let's break down the performance section into several points. Starting with the first one, is the 2400 really different from the 2400E that was in the older S24 FE? Both are 10-core processors. Look, the 2400E was actually a slightly down-clocked version of the 2400. Its frequencies were just a bit lower. So benchmark numbers do show a difference. Yes, the regular 2400 performs a bit better, but it's not a huge or game-changing gap. Forget benchmarks. In real-world use, the S25 FE's performance is excellent. I won't exaggerate and call it rocket fast, but it's very smooth. The interface feels great and the processor is powerful. It's still a flagship processor, even if it's an older one, so you'll get a very fast experience, opening apps and switching between them with zero issues. And to be fair, that's the exact same experience as the S24 FE. Identical, no problems at all. So what's changed? The difference is mainly in cooling. Even though the S25 FE still gets warm under heavy load, it heats up a bit, it's noticeably cooler than the S24 FE. And I'm not talking about the temperature shown in benchmark apps. I mean the actual feel when you're holding the phone in your hand. The heat on the back, around the camera, and the frame. Yes, the S25 FE still gets warm, but the heat is much less noticeable than before. The S24 FE used to heat up with the lightest tasks. Samsung fixed that with the new vapor chamber and also some software tweaks, mainly by lowering CPU frequencies under heavy load. You'll notice the processor throttles a bit quicker and more aggressively than the S24 FE, but it still performs well overall. To be fair, in the flagship killer category, the Honor 400 Pro with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 achieves benchmark numbers close to the Exynos 2400, but with less heat and less throttling. Still, Samsung maintains the edge with its smoother software experience. Now, here's the weird part. Gaming. I found that PUBG only runs at 60 frames per second. That's really disappointing. Like, are you guys kidding? This chip can easily handle 120 frames per second. Even the older S24 FE could run it at 90 frames per second. This issue probably comes down to poor optimization for Exynos chips by the game developers. But how is that possible when this same processor is used in the S24 Plus? I believe this will be fixed in a future game update, and hopefully Samsung works with them to sort it out. It's just not right that a phone like this only runs PUBG at 60 frames per second. And just to be clear, that's how things are at the time of filming this video. If you're watching later, maybe it's already been fixed and the game now runs at 90 or 120 frames per second. Bottom line, the S25 FE delivers nearly identical performance to the S24 FE. No major or dramatic differences, except for slightly better cooling. And of course, all the advanced AI features are fully present on the FE, nothing missing. You're getting the same AI experience as on the Ultra model. Everything works perfectly. The best one for me is AI Eraser. You can remove anything from a photo and the phone fills in the background automatically. It works great, as you can see in the video. Another awesome one is Audio Eraser. It lets you use AI to remove background noise, wind, or any unwanted sounds, so your video audio comes out clean. And yes, Samsung DeX is available on the FE, and its Type-C port is USB 3.2, so you'll get super fast data transfer speeds. The fingerprint sensor hasn't changed. It's still optical, so you have to fully place your finger on the scanner, but it's reasonably fast. There's a secondary mic for noise cancellation, NFC support, and the always-on display stays active all the time. The stereo speakers with Dolby Atmos sound great, loud, rich, and clear. Of course, there's no 3.5mm headphone jack. As for the proximity sensor that turns off the screen during calls, it's software-based, and I think it needs a bit of improvement. It should react faster when you bring the phone to your ear, because sometimes it's a bit slow and might cause accidental touches during calls. Hopefully, Samsung can fix that with a software update. Now, for network and Wi-Fi, the FE's performance is close to the S and Ultra models. The signal quality is solid. I've had no issues at all with my Ultra, and this one performs just as well, even a bit stronger than most Galaxy A series phones. Battery time, it's now 4,900 mAh, which is 200 mAh bigger than the previous version, But honestly, after using the phone for several days, not just one, I found the battery life is almost identical to the older model. Same usage, same screen on time, which was a bit disappointing. Look, the S24 FE's battery wasn't bad. It was already improved compared to the S23 FE, which had real issues. Many people said the S24 FE could easily last a full day. The S25 FE is pretty much the same. That extra battery capacity doesn't really translate to longer screen on time. Probably because the Exynos 2400 has slightly higher actual frequencies than the older chip in the S24 FE. I'm giving you the fine details here so you fully understand what's going on. Anyway, the battery will last you through the whole day with moderate use, around 7 to 8 hours of screen on time. I just wish the FE had a slightly bigger battery so I'd feel as confident with it as I do with the S25 Ultra or S25 Plus, which last a bit longer in real-world use. Charging speed has improved, it's now 45 watts, and the phone fully charges in 1 hour, which is great since that's Samsung's fastest charging speed. And yes, the phone supports wireless charging as well.
And we'll finish with the cameras. Will the FE offer a leading photography experience? The phone comes with a triple rear camera setup. The main one is 50 megapixels with an f1.8 aperture and optical image stabilization, and the second lens is 8 megapixels with an f2.4 aperture, also with optical image stabilization, a telephoto lens responsible for real 3x zoom that can go digitally up to 30x, and the last lens is 12 megapixels with an f2.2 aperture, and this one is for ultra-wide shots. As hardware numbers for the rear cameras, nothing at all has changed from the old S24 FE. But the selfie camera is what changed, and it has become 12 megapixels with an f2.2 aperture. The phone still shoots portrait at 1x, 2x, and 3x with zoom up to 30x, and it shoots video with the main rear camera in 8K. And if you drop the quality down to 4K, 30 frames per second, you'll be able to shoot with all the lenses. Let's check out the image quality on the S25 FE compared to the old S24 FE. Look, let's start with the rear camera. Honestly, there is no fundamental difference in photography capabilities between the S25 FE and the S24 FE in real-world use. Both have the same camera hardware, and both have a very similar Exynos processor with barely any difference in clock speed, so basically nothing has changed. Maybe the newer interface on the S25 FE has a very slight change in how it processes images from the rear camera, which might show up in some photos or scenarios if you really zoom in and pay attention, but it's definitely not a big difference at all. Don't become upset though, because the cameras on the old S24 FE were already very good and highly competitive. They're solid cameras in the flagship killer category. But to be fair, I really wished only the telephoto lens would change. That 8 megapixels lens has a very old lens setup. I was hoping to see a 10 or 12 megapixels telephoto lens, which would have given a 3x portrait shooting experience with more detail, and also a further zoom range with more detail. But overall, the shooting experience on the S25 FE leans much more towards flagship phones than to mid-range phones at all. And the zoom capabilities are still limited at 30x. The zoom is acceptable up to 10x. After that, at 20x and 30x, you'll honestly find that the details in the photos are really not the clearest. Because like I told you, that 8 megapixels telephoto lens needs to be changed. The selfie camera, though, is what changed, and for me it looks better with nicer skin tones and better processing. So this is the noticeable, tangible change in the photography capabilities of the S25 FE compared to the S24 FE. I'll leave you now with the video samples. Do you think there's an improvement in video quality on the new FE compared to the old one? Both of them shoot 8K and shoot at 30 frames and 60 frames per second, and right now I'm shooting at 4K 30 frames per second. Both are using exactly the same lenses down to the millimeter as hardware for the rear camera, and both are running on an Exynos processor. Is there any improvement in video recording quality? We're going to see that together right now. And this is the night video shooting test on the S25 FE next to the S24 FE in 4K. The lighting has dropped a lot now. It's just the skylight and the street lighting here, which is very warm and honestly quite low. There is, however, a difference in selfie video quality thanks to the new 12 megapixel lens in the S25 FE. The skin tones look noticeably nicer than on the old one. That's what I'm seeing on the screens, and I expect that this will really be the difference when we look at them on the same screen. It's just that the angle has become a bit narrower than the old one. That's how I feel while I'm shooting, but that's okay. In exchange for these skin tones, I feel like it really is flagship level when it comes to selfie photography. And this is a selfie video recording test in slightly low light. So let's see, is the S25 FE really better at shooting videos than the old FE, or what's the verdict?
As for the price, the phone comes in two versions. The 256GB version with 8GB of RAM for $650, and a 512GB version with 8GB of RAM for $800.
All prices mentioned are approximate estimates, meant to give you a general idea. Please check local prices in your country for accuracy.
And the phone can run two SIM cards, doesn't run a memory card, and of course it supports the eSIM feature. My final opinion, the S25 FE is still offering a special experience in the flagship killer category with very premium build materials, a solid display, Samsung's distinctive software and 7 years of Android updates, the best AI features that actually work, and Samsung DeX and a USB Type-C 3.2 port with very respectable cameras, whether in photos or videos, support for 8K video recording, respectable stereo sound, and 45 watts charging. What I didn't like, or what I would have liked to see a bit better in this phone, the bottom bezel of the screen, I wish it were smaller, that it would come with 12GB of RAM instead of 8, that the telephoto lens would be changed and become stronger than 8 megapixels, and that the battery and actual usage time would last a bit longer. I hope from Samsung, and this is necessary, that they fix things with PUBG so that this game runs at 120 frames. It's not acceptable for a phone at this price, and with this very powerful processor, for the game to run at only 60 frames. The upgrades between the S25 FE and the old S24 FE are limited to a few things, the most important of which are the lower thickness, the lower weight, the screen whose bezels have become slimmer and whose type has become better, and the layer that has become completely black without anything lit up in the always-on display, and a slightly more active processor, slightly better cooling, a better selfie camera, and faster 45 watts charging. Yeah, if you count with me, there are a lot of upgrades, but I still have my same opinion as always. If you already have the S24 FE, don't replace it and get the S25 FE. There are upgrades, but they do not equal the price difference you will pay between selling your old phone used and buying this phone new. But if you're about to buy now, then of course don't buy the S24 FE. Buy the S25 FE, which gives you an experience very close to Samsung's flagship phones at 60% of the official price. I see that the S25 FE has now become kind of like a revival of the old S24 Plus, blended in the mixer with the new S25 Plus, cheaper than the S25 Plus, and for me as a package, it's good and acceptable. So Samsung now has tiers. You have the A56 at the beginning of the upper mid-range category, you have the S25 FE in the clear flagship killer category, which has gone a bit higher. Then in front of you, there's the S25 Plus if you don't want the pen and the strong zoom, and the S25 Ultra if you want to take Samsung's full flagship experience, and if you want to go even higher and get the Fold 7, you're free if you want a foldable phone. And that's it. I'd really like to thank you a lot if you made it with me to this point. I'm done with the video. Sorry if I took too long. Make sure you've dropped a nice like, write me a comment right now and tell me what you think of the S25 FE and at what price you would buy it. Like what price, if this phone launches at it or reaches it one day, would make it a bargain. And make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you're seeing us for the first time on YouTube, and turn on the bell icon so you can see new reviews and comparisons for phones as soon as they come out.